We are currently embarking on a strategy development process to define the long-term vision for the company. And I think with what has happened in the past few years, we've come to realize that we need an integrated funding model for Sanral. So we're looking strongly at public-based tax funding. We're also looking at toll revenue to continue. We will not discontinue that strategy. We're just going to apply it possibly more cautiously and guardedly in areas where it makes sense to do so. Lastly, we are looking at opportunities now to create our own revenue in quite a number of areas. And the detail in that will come out as we finalize our own strategy. But I think that will be more comprehensive as a funding model. It's already beginning to emerge that the black and white boxes of toll and non-toll are not going to be sustainable going forward. And we may also see some hybrid funding models emerge where in some cases you've got a bit of public funding supplemented by toll funding for some projects where it's applicable. Well, there's a couple of things that we're currently discussing. I don't want to let out a lot in that because it's still discussion stage, but we've got a lot of land, for instance, that we manage as a portfolio. There's tremendous opportunity to tap into that for own revenue generation. There's opportunities, for instance, of generating revenue through advertising, and there's opportunities for us generating funding through basically using some of the assets that we've created for GFIP. We've got a massive transaction clearinghouse, which basically makes us a bank. We would be able to provide services to quite a number of entities that would be looking for support in that regard. But also in that facility, we've got a lot of data that we could use to benefit quite a number of other authorities, SARS, the police, INATIS, ATO, and so on. Again, the PFMA demands that we continue to chase the people that owe us money. We can't write off the debt, and we're going to continue with concerted effort to make sure that we recover that money. We must also mention that the summonses that were initiated will continue. We're working very closely with the justice sector to make sure that they are prioritized so that the cases can sit, and in fact we're able to get judgments in that regard. We want to pursue 1 or 2 criminal cases just to prove to people that it's important for them to comply with the law, and if they don't, the Act actually does allow us to pursue people criminally. Beyond that, we do want to look at the more positive side as well, because we feel that in addition to just enforcing the law, there's opportunities for us to encourage people to volunteer to participate by themselves. The most important thing is that we have acceptance level grow. So through some of the things we've already done, like for instance, using the interoperability mechanism so that people with a tag can be able to ride on any of our toll schemes across the country. We've seen the benefit, and I think the public has appreciated that. We're wanting to look at other opportunities. We could integrate the system with, for instance, parking facilities. We could integrate the system with other authorities that would find a lot of benefit in terms of using our technology to streamline their own processes. And I think if people see the value of the infrastructure, they would be willing to participate themselves. First of all, I think my priority is to balance the engagements when it comes to Sanral. 86% of our network is not tolled, and it's implemented through public financing from National Treasury. I think we need to strongly demonstrate to people how relevant Sanral's work is to their development aspirations in their localities. We need to work very closely with provinces and municipalities to jointly plan so that our projects complement the projects in a local context to further the economic as well as social development objectives of those areas. We need to set the record straight in areas where we may have been misquoted or possibly people have not understood our role, but we also need to be frank enough to admit where we have made mistakes. We're going to be embarking on a new approach to consultations. We've already requested the ministers to seriously consider developing a new toll roads policy for the country so that we're able to get our people to contribute to a new way of when, where, and how we're going to be pursuing tolls going forward. And certainly we don't want to be at loggerheads with the public as well as non-governmental organizations that have an interest in what we do. We want to cooperate and see if we can engage, find each other, move out of our corners and be able to find solutions that are going to be in the interest of the public going forward. But certainly the most important, I want to focus on engineering. I want us to redeem Sanral from a technical perspective so that we focus on technical excellence and leave politics aside. Well, firstly, if we look at it from the perspective of a collusion that happened around 2010, I think government ran a process with the construction industry to deal with that matter. The settlement that was concluded last year is binding to Sanral. There's nothing else we're going to do in that regard. I think we're bound by that settlement agreement. Our biggest opportunity now is to tap into the Tirisano fund of that 1.5 billion to make sure that it helps us to further our transformation objectives and contractor development objectives. We've got a technical excellence academy out in PE that we want to support through that vehicle. Number two, we would welcome any credible study that would tell us from a market perspective if indeed in South Africa you've got a challenge of overpricing generally in construction. This is a challenge that would not only affect Sanral, it would affect Eskom, it would affect Transnet, it would affect all of the big infrastructure entities of government. In that regard, I think the PICC is probably a very good entry point for anyone who would want that kind of study to be commissioned. So it is not a Sanral issue, and I think if it's Outer or anybody else, they should be talking to the PICC to commission an industry-level review of whether prices are high or not in this country. Certainly where GFIP is concerned, we don't believe that there's been any overpricing. We have looked at the figures in terms of the tender, which was public, by the way, that was commissioned, and the projects that were implemented. This is an urban freeway with 6 lanes up and down. In sections, you had to acquire land. In sections, there are big infrastructures that had to be constructed, interchanges and bridges and so on. It is not comparable to a simple 2-lane road out in the Bundus, which is a trunk road. And I think, we want to defend what was done here. We have engaged with the people that deliver the projects for us, and we're quite confident that our books, in fact, will have the evidence that there was no such overpricing. Anybody that has information to the contrary is welcome to come and engage technically with our engineers, but it's unfortunate that rumors are being spread, and quite frankly, we do not agree that there was gross overpricing in these projects.